All right, hey everybody, this is Rosh, and you're watching FM3 Basics. This is a YouTube tutorial series that I'm putting together to help new and experienced users program all the Fractal products, including the FM9, the FM3, and the FX3. So a little about myself. Once again, my name is Rosh, and I am a guitar player and guitar tech out here in the Los Angeles area. I help build and program guitar rigs for a lot of different clients. Some of my clients include Steve Vai, Leppard, Etheridge, A Perfect Circle, Bush, and more. I wanted to give back to the Fractal community and show some tips and tricks on how to program all their Fractal products, including the FM9, the FX3, and in this case, the FM3. So one of the best features I feel for playing live with any of the Fractal units, and in this case, the FM3, is actually the performance pages. So a lot of users struggle with getting their tones dialed in and leveled out for live performances. So they're always saying, hey, my presets are too loud or too quiet, or when I switch from one sound to the other, I'm struggling getting them to sound loud enough, or maybe one section's too loud, etc. So I wanted to go over, a really great way to be able to adjust your presets on the fly live using a couple following steps. So what we're going to be, let's call this, let's say, live performance pages. So let's build a basic preset, and let's assume that, we're playing a gig and it's some kind of situation where you're going to need like a clean, a crunch, or like a rhythm, clean rhythm, and maybe like a lead sound. So what we're going to do is let's do a quick build, and we're going to do an output block here, amp block, and a cap block. We're going to connect everything. And of course, I'm going to use a reverb, and we're going to connect those. And if this is your first video watching with me, to connect any shunt, you're going to go from this O down to this I, so output to input, and then click on those two things and it'll connect them. If you already have something connected and you click it again, it's going to disconnect. So what I did was I hit the O, and you can connect multiple shunts in a row by clicking all the way through here to the end. So we're going to save that, and in this case, we're going to turn the mix all the way up to this reverb, and I'm going to bring the level down a little bit, and we want to make sure the bypass mode is mute in. So now let's say with a clean sound, especially with the FM3 having only 3 switches, we want to make sure that, we have maybe something that has, you can roll off the volume knob or something that you can respond with. So let's do, I guess we can do the Class A TB. All right. So we're going to use kind of like a Vox style amp for the clean sound. And of course, we're going to pick Class A. Let's just do this one. I like using the ultra res cabinets generally. They sound a little bit better to me. And we're going to go here, do that. Let's get this kind of clean sound dialed in. Okay, it's pretty bright. Let's bring the treble down, the high cut up a little bit. Okay, bring that gain down just to get it to clean up a little bit. Okay, now this is pretty thin sounding, so I'm going to add another cab to this. And let's do this Class A again, and instead of using a dynamic mic, we're going to use kind of a ribbon mic right here. Go to ultra res again, and let's just make sure the level between these two is balanced a little bit. Yeah, it sounds a lot better. So that ribbon mic really fills out the rest of that sound. And let's add a little bit more bass, and let's make sure that they're level. Okay, so I can definitely afford to come up a little bit with that amp. And for me, I always try to get the amp block to kind of be right around here, about 0. And keep in mind, it is totally okay to go slightly into the red as long as you're not just going crazy. 3 or 4 dB above the red is totally fine. And it really depends on like what pickup I'm using. Here's the neck pickup. If I'm using like a single coil, you know, but if I'm using a bridge pickup and digging in. So I would say this is a pretty versatile, clean sound. You can roll off your guitar volume a little bit with a single coil and get, you know, something definitely a lot cleaner. Okay, so now the second scene, we wanted a rhythm sound. So we're gonna go into the B channel of this. And when I think, you know, rock rhythm sounds, I'm usually, especially for a gig, I'm usually kind of thinking some kind of like crunchy rock sound. So a Marshall is usually pretty good. Let's do the Brit 800. And let's find a matching cabinet for that. So what I'm gonna do is of course go into the B channel of the cabinet as well. And let's say, I like using greenbacks generally with Marshall sounds. So I'm going to go to this pre-roll greenback right here. We're going to do another low cut, another high cut, and let's see how that sounds. Let's do ultra res on this. The gain is probably pretty good. That's cool. It's pretty mid-rangey, pretty bright and brash, so definitely want to have some ribbon mic to kind of smooth out that top end a little bit. So again, I'm going to the same type of cabinet, but it's just with a ribbon mic instead, the 121. Let's see how that sounds. Sounds pretty good. I'm gonna actually bring this level down a little bit. Let's save that. And again, I want to get somewhere around the 0. Cool, and let's bring that up. Okay, cool. So let's go back and forth between these two sounds and just kind of A-B them. Okay, great. Now, one thing that is an auditory illusion for a lot of people is that if you listen to this clean sound and then you listen to this dirty sound, just because it has so much more gain and compression, your ear is telling you, wow, that dirty sound is so much louder. But if you look at the meters, they're metering really close. So this can trick your ear as you're leveling out your presets at home. But this live performance page is going to mitigate against that as soon as we set it up. So the last thing we're going to need is like a lead sound. So we can of course use a different amp if we want. I'm thinking something more, you know, high gain, easy to, you know, play a lot of notes on, something like that. So let's say, let's use the Archeon. This one has lots and lots of gain. So yeah, you can do something like that. I usually like to use a drive pedal right in front of the high gain sound. So let's use like a tube screamer. And we could probably stick with this cabinet. Let's see. Yeah, I want something smoother and warmer. So let's go to the C channel. And let's use maybe the rumble cab. And I'm going to go to ultra res. That sounds cool. And let's add a little bit of another ribbon mic to it. Maybe that one. Let's do some low and high cuts. And let's see what we get with this. And of course, we definitely want a little bit of delay on this. And oh, you know what? Let's go with a multi-delay, actually, just for fun. So let's do the Aurora delay. This is the Andy Timmons delay. I'm a big fan of his playing. And when you're running things in parallel, always use the mute in and the level parameters to determine how much of the effect is mixed in. That's pretty cool. Let's make sure I actually set this up for stereo. That'll sound a lot better. There we go. So, so that's a lot of that effect. Let's bring that way down. Okay, and we could probably bring back the feedback on this way back. We don't need that many repeats. Yeah, even more. Great, and don't need that, need this, and we can probably brighten this up just a hair. And then now let's meter this. So that amp block can definitely come up. So now that we got like a basic preset built, and we want to make sure that I'm going to keep that multi-delay and then drive off in each scene. So what we're going to do now is we want to set up some performance pages, because what tends to happen in a live situation, let's assume that we metered everything, we got them all leveled, and you know they're sounding pretty good at home, and you get to this live, and let's say since that's a lead sound, maybe we want it just a hair louder, and we save it. We still want to be able to adjust these things on the fly. So there's two things that you can do. In this performance tab right here, you can actually add the global performance. Usually these are the defaults. And this is basically taking the bass, the mid, the treble, the depth, the presence, the level, the master volume, and the input drive of each amp, of the amp block. So for example, if I am on the clean sound right here, it's going to reflect where the knobs are set from the current amp block in the current scene that we're on. So here's the Brit 800. So for example, if we look at this Class A top boost, the gain, which is the drive right here, you can see that that knob is the same way. So let's remember that number, 1.37. And if I'm moving this, if I move this knob or whatever, this performance page is going to reflect that. And so let's go back to 1.37. So if you want to be able to adjust any of the knobs on your amp, let's say, you can use this global performance control, and this is going to be in every scene, and you can adjust these on the fly. So to get there on your unit, what you're going to want to do is actually hit page right, and then hit page right again. And if you look in this tab, it says performance-global. So these knobs are actually going to correspond to the knobs on your amp, and you can actually turn them with the A, B, C, D, E knobs on your unit. So for example, if I am on the Class A right here, you can see that the bass of this amp is actually tied to the A knob. So if I turn the A knob, you can see that the amp is actually turning. And then now the Class A amp doesn't have a mid knob, but in the ideal page it does. So right now it's set to 5, but we could, of course, adjust this if we want. Let's put it back at 5. And then if you want to access the row that's right below, which would be the drive, the master level, and the master volume and the level, all you have to do is hit the nav down button, and then you can go there. And again, what's going to happen is that the drive knob, I can adjust that on this unit. And this is a really great way to be able to, just like a real analog amp, just turn the bass, mid, treble, the drive up and down on the fly as you wish. And if I change scenes, and in this case go to scene 2, now we have the Brit 800 amp. And again, using the nav button, we can, of course, adjust the bass, mid, treble, depth, presence, whatever. So if I want more mids in my sound, I can do that. And you can see that on FM3 Edit is reflecting that. If I want to adjust the gain, I can, of course, go down to the next menu and I can add more gain or subtract some gain. And if I go to scene 3, same thing. The amp knobs are set completely differently than the previous amp, but I can adjust. Let's say I don't want as much gain. I can turn the gain down. If I want to go to the bass, mid, and treble, you can do that. So what you can do is you can actually leave your FM3 on this page. So if I change scenes, you'll notice that this page still stays there. And if you look in the upper right, it tells you what scene you're on. So in our case, scene 1 is the clean scene. So we know that this is the clean amp. And then if we look at scene 2, we know this is our rhythm sound. And then you can see that it's the rhythm amp, in this case, the Brit 800. And then this one's the Archeon, however you pronounce that. And you can do this. Now, that is one way to go about leveling your sound. So on the fly, if you're performing and you're playing on this clean sound, and then suddenly you find, hey, I need a little bit more volume, you can reach down and just turn up, in this case, the amp level. And you'll notice that right here, it's adjusting that. You can just turn that up or down on the fly. And then if you're on the rhythm sound, you switch to the rhythm sound, you're like, oh, that's too loud. You can actually just turn this down now if you need to. If you turn up the lead sound and then the drummer gets more excited and he's playing super loud, you can, of course, turn up the level. Now, that's one way to approach this. Now, if you look in this performance tabs, you also have this preset performance controls. So the way I generally actually do things is that I leave the global performance controls for my main amp adjustments. So I can leave it on this screen if I want to, if I need to add more bass, mid, treble on the fly. But what I find the most useful is actually the performance controls, and here's what I do with it. In the output block, there are scene levels, and these scene levels are actually sliders so that each scene has its own independent volume. So for example, in scene 1, if I find that it's too loud or not loud enough, you can actually bring this slider up and down and adjust the volume. So this is a really great way to be able to do this. Now you'll notice that each scene is going to have its own independent volume. So this can be really useful for some users who maybe just use one amp and they use different pedals, different drive blocks to add different amounts of gain, but they like just having one amp. Or definitely other people who, let's say, are using a preset for a song. So maybe you have a quiet verse, but a really loud chorus, and then there's like a bridge that's quieter, and you can adjust your scene levels that way. Now, what you can do is you can also add these sliders into the performance tabs. So I'm going to go to this performance, and I'm going to click scene 1 and put it here. Scene 2, put it here, and scene 3, put it here. Now, if you have more than 3 scenes, you of course can keep adding more scenes, but in this case, we only have 3 scenes that we would need to adjust the levels for. And so what we're going to do is, now that it's in the performance tab, you can go to the unit and hit the page until it gets to the per performance page. It looks like perform-pp, and then now you have these outputs that are corresponding to the A, B, and C knobs. So for example, if I turn the A knob up, you'll notice that the scene 1 level also goes up with it. And I find this is infinitely more useful than just doing just the amp knobs, because you can actually adjust on the fly all 3 levels of your scenes. So in this case, the clean sound is going to be operating from the A knob, the rhythm sound is going to be operating from the B knob, and then the lead sound is going to be operating from the D knob. So on the fly, as you're playing, you can adjust these so that when you're playing your clean sound, or I'm sorry, when you're playing, like, let's say even your rhythm sound, and then you switch back to your clean sound, you'll notice that it's a lot quieter. So what you can do, of course, is you can just adjust between them. So as you're playing your clean sound, let's say, maybe you need more volume. Maybe you are switching pickups, so I'm using my single coils right now. And I'm realizing that maybe I need more output on that just because I'm using different pickups. I'll turn that up. But if I go to my rhythm sound and I'm using a humbucker, going back to the clean sound using single coils. So that can be really useful, but maybe in a different situation, let's say I'm using a neck humbucker for my clean sound, and that's way too loud now, so I can turn this down, and you'll notice the scene 1 sliders are reflecting that. And then maybe I go to the rhythm sound and it's kind of more of a palm muted thing. And then again, you go to your lead sound and suddenly you realize maybe it's too loud. So let's bring that way down. I find that very useful, and you can see it's really quick and easy to just crouch down in a live situation and just turn up any one of these 3 knobs. Of course, if you have more scenes, you can add the scene 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to the performance pages if you need to. So we don't have these scenes programmed in this particular preset, but you can use them. So you'll find that, again, these can be adjusted by the A, B, C, D knobs. If you need to get to the second row, use the nav button and go down, and you can turn up scene 6 in this case. And if you need to go back to the original row, hit the nav button going up. So I find this to be really useful live when you're performing. It's as simple as just crouching down, or even in between songs, just turning the knob up and down. Now, the last thing to remember is that if you do adjust any of these adjustments, they are not saved to your preset. If you do want to save it, so let's say we make some adjustments, but if we actually leave this preset, and in this case, maybe let's save this first. Let's say at some situation, let's actually zero these out for a second. So keep in mind that these adjustments are not saved on the preset. So if you do make any adjustments, in this case, I'm just going to kind of turn some knobs, and you leave the preset for whatever reason, and you return to it, you'll notice that the scene levels revert to how the preset was saved. So if you do make some adjustments, the first thing you're going to want to do, let's say you're leveling out these sounds at sound check or something. Maybe the clean sound needs to go up a little bit. Let's go to the rhythm sound. That's cool. Maybe let's bring that down just a hair. Now, if you want to save these, you're going to need to either save the preset, and in this case, I would be hitting save on the FM3 edit. But if you're not, obviously, in a live performance situation, you're probably not going to be connected to a laptop. You're going to want to hit store and then enter again, because it'll overwrite this preset, and then it'll save those output levels as they are. So take a note of these numbers. If I leave the preset, and I return back to it, the numbers are going to still be the same. Now, again, it's not, I don't always have to keep, saving it especially if I'm using one preset for a gig or something, but it can be useful to make your adjustments as needed, get in the habit of hitting store, enter, and then at least gives you like a starting point that when you return to this preset, if you find that maybe the clean channel is too loud now, or the lead sound needs to be louder, you can of course adjust that as well. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope it was informative and helpful. If you need any one-on-one sessions, any help programming any of your Fractal units, I do one-on-one consulting. Please contact me at your convenience. You can reach out directly to me. If you have any other tutorials you would like me to cover, I would be more than happy to make some. Please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. Other than that, I'll talk to you guys next time.
I'm falling with you. I'm standing